fifth grade, we asked students to classify 2D shapes in a hierarchy based on properties. Now what that means, hierarchy, traditionally, when I think of hierarchy, I think of like kings and queens and then they rule over everyone else. So you could have like your king up at top and then maybe they have some lords beneath them, and then maybe the lords rule the peasants in a certain part of the territory. Now this is what a hierarchy looks like. Now we use the same kind of setup, but we use it for shapes, and we use properties to put them in their spot on the hierarchy. Now up at the top of this hierarchy, you want the most broad term that everything underneath can still fit under. So when I first start talking about this with students, it's the most basic term you can think of, and usually come up with something like a thing. So things, that's so open, anything could be a thing. We want to get more specific, we might say shapes. And now you might be thinking, okay, maybe I can do a spiral shape, or I can do a triangle, or I could do a cool lightning bolt, or whatever. And then my teaching comes in and we start thinking, okay, there are specific shapes, and the most basic one that we're going to talk about would be the polygon. So we really start here in our hierarchy. We start at the polygon. Now a polygon has at least 3 sides. It has to be closed, and all sides need to be straight. So that means a circle cannot be a polygon, but a triangle could be a polygon, a quadrilateral could be a polygon, and so forth. They have to have straight sides, and it has to be closed. It has to be 2D too, it has to be flat. There's no cones or prisms in a polygon. They're all 2D. They're all two-dimensional. They're only a length and a width. Okay, so that's what a hierarchy means. Let's take a look at what this would look like with, we talk about in 5th grade, which are quadrilaterals. So we talk about quadrilaterals. So quadrilaterals. So we talk about 4-sided shapes. 4 sides. And like I said, we start off with the polygon. So that could be at the top of our hierarchy. And then below that we would have quadrilaterals. So now we know that they're 4-sided polygons. They're quadrilaterals. And now we break this down into subcategories. So over here we could have something called a kite. And a kite has 4 sides because they're all quadrilaterals. It's closed and has straight sides, so it's a polygon, but it's a specific quadrilateral called a kite, and that has adjacent sides congruent, meaning this size and this side are the same size, and this side and this side are the same size, and they're adjacent, means they connect with each other. All right. Another category we could have are different color. Are trapezoids. Trapezoids have 1 set of parallel sides. So 1 set of parallel sides is a trapezoid. And then over here we have our parallelograms. Now please excuse the horrible writing over here on this thing, but parallelograms have 2 sets of parallel sides. If I can draw this. So this side and this side are parallel, and these horizontal lines are parallel. So you can see how we're kind of now breaking it off on their properties. First off, polygon. Below a polygon, quadrilateral. Make it specific, it's 4-sided polygon. And now we've taken quadrilaterals and broken them into 3 subcategories. We have kites, trapezoids, and parallelograms. And now over here, now under parallelograms, so let me go over, swipe this up. Under parallelograms, you can have a rectangle over here, and you can have a rhombus over here. So these both have 2 sets. Now under the parallelogram, it means they still have 2 sets of parallel sides. So both of these have 2 sets of parallel sides, which I'm notating there. So this is a rectangle, and this is a rhombus. But what makes these different is this one has 4 right angles, and this one does not. The rhombus does not. So you can go over here and say this is 4 right angles, and over here, non-4 right angles. And now even getting more specific under parallelogram, which is our most specific quadrilateral that we talk about, is your square. Now, the square has, oh sorry, I skipped something. On the rhombus, what makes a rhombus, all sides are congruent. Alright, so rectangle does not have that, a rhombus does. A square has all these properties. It has all sides congruent, it has 4 right angles, it has your 2 sets of parallel sides. It has your horizontal and your vertical. So when we look at this hierarchy, what we could say then is this. A trapezoid is a polygon. A trapezoid is a quadrilateral because it's beneath them. But a trapezoid is not a parallelogram, and a trapezoid is not a kite. Likewise, a trapezoid is not a rectangle, and a trapezoid is not a rhombus. A trapezoid is also not a square down here. So it is this, and it is this. Now looking even more specific, let's look at a rectangle. A rectangle is a rectangle. That's its specific name if it meets all the criteria. If it has 4 right angles and 2 sets of parallel sides. It's also a parallelogram. It's also a quadrilateral. It's also a polygon. So we can call it 1, 2, 3, 4 different names, with its most specific name being rectangle. Now go down to square. A square can have a lot of names. So this guy down here could also be called a rhombus, a rectangle, a parallelogram, a quadrilateral, and a polygon. But even a kindergartner is going to look at that and call it a square because it's its most specific name. But you technically could call it a rectangle. It is a rectangle. It's just a specific rectangle called a square. And so a big question in 5th grade that we like to talk about is a square is a rectangle. But a rectangle is not a square. So that's an important lesson that I want all my 5th graders to know. And we can look at that here using this hierarchy of shapes.